Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. We are pleased to present our EMBA group project for the Organizational Behavior module. Our topic focuses on the application of OB concepts in a real-world organization, Asia. This project is a collaboration among 7 team members. I'm the leader. My name is Loy Kok Liang, and my teammate has Alan Liao, Charles R. Wei Hon, Rachel Ha Yuan Yi, Kong Sen Pian, Lim Yit Jun, and last but not least, Tan Yu Hang. We are guided by our lecturer, Professor Dr. Jerome Jayamana. This project involved weeks of research, group discussions, and synthesis of both academic theory and corporate practice. We hope to deliver insights that are not only academically grounded but also practical in today's business environment. In the midst of economic collapse, grounded flights, and mass layoffs, AirAsia leadership faced unprecedented challenges. What makes their case unique is not just how they survive, but how they lean on organizational behavior as a toolkit to drive ethical leadership, foster motivation, and sustain culture. In our study, we explore few OB concepts. Number one, leadership theory likes McGregor's theory X and Y. Number two, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Number three, personality models such as the Big Five. Number four, social learning theory. And number five, Senger's learning organization model. We focused on 5 OB pillars: leadership, motivation, ethics, learning, and inclusivity. Our core finding is that OB was not just a support tool, but a strategic enabler for AirAsia's organization resilience. To set the stage for our case study, let's begin with a brief introduction to organizational behavior, or OB. Organizational behavior is the study of how people behave within organizations. It looks at individual actions, group dynamics, and overall organizational structure and culture. But beyond observation, OB provides tools and frameworks that help leaders improve workplace effectiveness, motivation, and adaptability. The study of organizational behavior is structured around 3 key levels. The individual level. OB examines things like personality, perceptions, learning styles, and motivations. At the group level, it focuses on communication, leadership, team dynamics, and conflict resolutions. And at the organizational level, it explores culture, structure, power, and strategize for change. In a crisis, all 3 levels become even more interconnected. Employees look to leaders not just for direction, but for emotional reassurance. Teams must adapt rapidly, often under pressure, and organizations must be flexible, transparent, and empathetic to sustain trust. This is exactly where organizational behavior becomes powerful, not just as theory, but as a practical toolkit. In the case of AirAsia, these organizational behavior principles were critical in navigating one of the most turbulent periods in aviation history. They help guide decision making, preserve culture, and keep people connected, even when planes were grounded and the future was uncertain. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, it didn't just ground planes, it grounded people's confidence. For AirAsia, the biggest challenge wasn't only operational, it was human. Employees were suddenly faced with immense fear, stress, and uncertainty. Many didn't know if they would have a job tomorrow. Salaries were slashed, thousands were retrenched, and for those who remained, morale was at an all-time low. Beyond that, the company's culture, once vibrant, energetic, and people-centric, began to erode under the weight of isolation and digital communication. This situation severely affected employee attitudes. Motivation dropped, communication became strained, and emotional fatigue started to set in. At the same time, ethical expectations were rising. People were watching closely to see how leadership would handle tough decisions, especially around layoffs and restructuring. AirAsia's leaders have to ask themselves difficult questions. How do you keep people motivated, ethical, and engaged when your entire industry is in survival mode? The question became the heart of our case study. It challenged us to see organizational behavior not just a framework, but as a lifeline for restoring trust, stability, and direction when everything else feels uncertain.
To understand how Asia navigates these challenges, we first grounded our research in organizational behavior theory. Organizational behavior as a field draws on multiple disciplines, mainly psychology, sociology, and human resource management. This would help us analyze workplace behavior from different angles: the individual, the team, and the organizational as a whole. Over time, several foundational models has been developed to explain how organizational functions. One of the most relevant to our study is the evolutions of organizational behavior models, from autocratic to custodial models, to more progressive approaches like supportive and collegial models. In the autocratic model, for example, employees are expected to follow orders with minimum input, and authority is absolute. In contrast, the supportive model encourages open communications, mutual trust, and employee development. Before the pandemic, AirAsia leaned toward a mix of collegial and supportive behavior. Teams were empowered, and when there was a strong sense of ownership across the organization. However, when COVID hits, the company had to depend on its reliance on supportive model. Leadership became more empathetic, communications become more transparent, and the focus shift from short-term control to long-term trust. This shift wasn't just philosophically, it was strategic. It helped sustain employees' engagement even when the company couldn't offer financial certainty. So in our analysis, we examine how these organizational behavior theories move from paper to practice and how they give AirAsia a human-centered path through the crisis. Ethics play a critical role in organizational behavior, especially during a crisis. It is not about policy, but about making decisions that uphold dignity, fairness, and transparency. For AirAsia, the COVID-19 pandemic forced them into making painful decisions, including retrenchments and salary cuts. But what stood out was how they handled these challenges ethically. Instead of making decisions behind the closed door, AirAsia leadership chose to communicate openly with employees. Town hall meetings, internal updates, and open feedback channels helps maintain trust even when the news wasn't good. On the learning front, organizational behavior introduced us the model like classical and operant conditioning. But AirAsia went a step further by adapting social learning theory and Peter Singh's learning organizational models. They encourage employees to learn not just from formal training, but from each other. Leaders become role models for continuous learning, helping create a culture of adapting and resilience. Employee attitudes during a crisis can either strengthen or weaken an organization. Attitudes are shaped by three components: what people believe, how they feel, and how they behave. When COVID hit, fear and uncertainty leads to negative emotions. But AirAsia acted quickly to realign employees' attitudes with the company's mission. They did this by recognizing employees' contribution, engaging them through transparent communications, and reinforcing a sense of purpose. Programs such as online CO sessions, staff shout-outs, and emotional support initiatives help boost morale. Personality also play a key role. AirAsia applied the Big Five personality models to understand how different traits affected behavioral during remote work and digital transformations. For example, people in conscientiously handle structure, remove tasks well, while those with high open were placed in creative problem-solving roles. The personality aware approach helped AirAsia place the right people in the right roles even during uncertain times. Perception influences how employees interpret events, leadership actions, and organizational changes. In a crisis, inaccurate perceptions can quickly turn into fear or resistance. AirAsia tackled by this, introducing bias training program to reduce stereotyping and the halo effect. They also curated internal communications to ensure clarity and consistency. Rather than letting rumors spread, they proactively shape the narrative through inclusive messaging that emphasize a shared identity. Psychologically, safety were another priority. Human resource ensured that employees felt comfortable voicing their concern or asking for help without fear or judgment. This helped AirAsia maintain a more united and informed workforce.
AirAsia was established in 2001 as a low-cost airline in Malaysia. With its powerful tagline, "Now everyone can fly," the company revolutionized air travel across Asia. It expanded rapidly, launching subsidies such as AirAsia X for long-haul flight and AirAsia Digital for tech ventures. Before the pandemic, AirAsia was known for its agile, empowered, and tech-savvy culture. Employees were encouraged to be innovative, take initiative, and prioritize customer service. This culture became both their greatest strength and their greatest test when COVID-19 disrupted everything. Maslow's hierarchy of needs helps explain the psychological impact of the pandemic. Once basic psychological needs are met, people look for safety, belongings, and esteem. For many AirAsia employees, safety, both financial and emotional, was severely threatened. To respond, AirAsia adopted a supportive OB models. They didn't treat employees as helpless victims, but empowered them to be part of the solution. Drawing on McGregor's theory why Maslow's hierarchy of needs help explain the psychological impact of the pandemic. Once basic psychological needs are met, people look for safety, belongings, and esteem. For many AirAsia employees, safety, both financial and emotional, was severely threatened. To respond, AirAsia adopted a supportive OB model. They didn't treat employees as helpless victims, but empowered them to be a part of the solution. Drawings on McGregor's theory why leaders assumed that staff were capable, motivated, and self-directed. This belief translated into action. Employees were invited into discussion about the future. Regular updates were shared through open forum, fostering transparency and trust, even as difficult decisions were made. One of the most painful tasks for any company is to let go of employees, but AirAsia showed that even in retrenchment, ethics can be upheld. CEO Tony Fernandez didn't hide from the issue. Instead, he appeared live in town hall, addressing employees directly. He used social media just for branding, but as a personal communication channel with staff. He didn't shy away from hard truth, and his honesty helped retain trust. AirAsia also launched the Rapid Academy, offering retraining programs for both current and retrenched employees. This initiative showed that ethical leadership is not about avoiding tough calls, but about making them with humanity and care. Learning became a cornerstone of AirAsia's recovery strategy. Through the Red Academy, they provided upskills in areas like digital marketing, tech, and entrepreneurship. But learning wasn't just formal. Social learning theory was applied by encouraging staff to learn from each other. Webinars, peer coaching, and mentoring sessions become common. This culture of continuous learning helps employees see opportunity in crisis and gave them tools to stay relevant in a changing world. Changing attitude under stress is difficult, but AirAsia approached it strategically. They understood that employees might feel conflicted, wanting to support the company, but feeling insecure or anxious. To manage this tension, they apply cognitive dissonance theory. By acknowledging fears, recognizing contributions, and communicating purpose, AirAsia helped bridge the gap between how employees felt and what the company needed. This emotional intelligence-driven approach reduces resistance and aligns personal value with organizational goals. Different personality traits thrive in different environments. AirAsia understood this and structured roles accordingly. Those with high openness were placed in innovations role to explore new digital opportunity. Employees with strong conscientiousness were assigned process redesign tasks that require attention to details. Emotionally stable leaders were placed in high-stress roles, managing change and comforting teams. This strategy use of personality mapping help create synergy within teams and optimize performance during a difficult period. Perceptions shape brand identity, both internally and externally. Within the company, AirAsia broke down silos by organizing cross-functional briefings. This reduced miscommunication and reinforced unity. Externally, they rebrand the low-cost label into something more positive by highlighting health protocols, tech innovation, and care for staff. They changed the public perception from cheap airline to smart, safe, and responsible. This rebranding was grounded in OP principles, because shaping perception begins with understanding behavior. Inclusivity became part of AirAsia crisis response. They conducted unconscious bias training, encouraging open forum, and showcased stories from staff of different backgrounds. This wasn't just a PR move, it was deeply integrated into their internal culture. By embedding inclusivity into their value, they created a stronger, more united workforce that reflected the diversity of the customers they serve.
To summarize, AirAsia applied organizational behavior principle across four critical areas. Firstly, they adopted a supportive leadership style fostering empowerment and open communication. Second, they prioritized ethical decision making even in retrenchment. Besides that, they invested in continuous learning both formally through Red Academy and informally through mentoring. Last, they reinforce inclusive communication to minimize prejudice and strengthen team cohesion. Despite one of the toughest periods in aviation history, AirAsia managed to stabilize employee morale and rebuild engagement. Remaining staff reported stronger alignment with leadership and greater clarity about the company's direction. Even as operations shrank, their culture remained intact and in some way became stronger. They also began shifting toward a digital-first model, setting a stage for future growth. From this case study, one of the biggest takeaways is that organizational behavior is not just a theory, it's a leadership asset. Companies that prioritize human needs, values, and behavior are more adaptable and resilient. They won't just survive, they evolve. AirAsia showed that in times of crisis, when financial capital is limited, human capital becomes your greatest strength. When people feel valued, heard, and supported, they stay committed even in hardship. Based on our study, we strongly recommend that organizations, especially small and medium enterprises and crisis-prone industry, may consider the following. First, integrate organizational behavior strategy into leadership development and crisis planning. Besides, foster two-way communication channels that build trust. And third, cultivate a culture of continuous learning and inclusivity to future-proof the organization. To conclude, organizational behavior is essential for navigating uncertainty. It's not just about managing people, it's about leading with empathy, vision, and strategy. AirAsia's story proves that organizational behavior can guide real change. By leaning on trust, culture, and human behavior, they created a roadmap for long-term recovery and for transformation. Last but not least, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to Professor Dr. Jerome for his invaluable guidance. We are also grateful for the effort of AirAsia leadership, whose transparency and innovation gave us a powerful case study. And of course, thank you to every member of our team for their dedication and teamwork throughout this assignment. Thank you.